one side.
You missed one upstairs too.
I'll bet.
One of the questions that came up, and I may have heard you wrong, but did Attorney Brooks write some updates of the current regulations, or no?
She just worked on the application.
She had written the request for preliminary review last year, but you all got caught up so much in other stuff, which is not that different from the form you had.
Right, but I mean, did she write something into the regulations to go with it?
No.
It was an,
Oh.
She
So
doesn't-
Peter,
when we talked
Peter
about it,
had
it
it right.
when we talked about it, it was a matter of trying to, any application that we make, as long as it's reflected in the regulations, is an administrative action. It has nothing to do, we don't have no public hearings to change an application. That's an
Right.
administrative function.
Right.
Attorney Brooks was trying to make sure that we were current in our understanding of the best way of following the law. Whether the declaratory preliminary application that we've been using in the past was in fact appropriate, and she really recommended that.
That was most of what she was asked to do, to look at the short form that you used to have, and she said nix to that. And so did Darcy Winther at DEEP. She said, get rid of
So
that form.
what came up while you were gone is the points were made and that there isn't any reference to declaratory ruling in the current regulations.
And I don't think there needs to be. I
Yeah,
think,
that's what my understanding
I
is too.
don't think, I think
This is a proposed.
I think that's, yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
that's not
from-
that different from what she had. She had a more complex thing where you would seek your guidance for anything in the upland review area and any reason for reserved right. But that doesn't mean that, because it's not there, doesn't mean that an applicant doesn't have to adhere to it.
Right, well, we
I mean-
have a whole packet here that I asked Attorney DeAndrea to call you, and I will leave this packet with you,
Here.
and,
Oh.
Take one.
anyway, there's a whole packet here, and I recommended to, everybody here on inland wetlands that we just refer it to Attorney Brooks, because
Okay.
it goes from attorney to attorney. And,
Okay, that's fine, we'll send it
and
over to her.
I told everyone that I had written the cease and correct on using the points advised by Attorney Brooks, so.
The only concern that I voiced, Kurt, was that it's fairly obvious when you get into the regulated activities as to the form that the application takes. And it's made very clear that you have to apply for something that's regulated. But there's nothing that really indicates a process to the uninitiated as to how to get from point A to point B on something which is as of right.
Well, I think the permitted, the landscaping one, uses incidental, doesn't that have an additional thing on size of,
No,
the size? It's a minimum lot size, isn't that in the regs?
no.
Yeah, it's in the state,
I
right?
don't think it is.
Do you have the regs there?
In the state, oh yeah, I have it.
Can you look
And
up?
the town.
Can you show to me?
There's a spare.
Yeah.
I actually have two.
The reserved rights, uses incidental to the enjoyment or maintenance of residential property, such property defined as equal to or smaller than the largest minimum residential lot size permitted anywhere in the municipality, provided that in any town where there's no zoning regulations, the largest minimum lot size should be 2 acres. So your zoning is 2 acres over there.
1
So
acre.
the way I would read that, if they
One.
cleared more than 2 acres,
Yeah,
that's not a reserved right.
yeah.
It's a 1 acre zone.
It's a 1 acre zone?
It's 1
The
acre.
zone is 1 acre.
1 acre.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
so
I mean, doesn't,
Clearly-
that's the way I read
clearly
that,
went
but.
way beyond the 1 acre. Yeah, I think that the only way to,
So I think these reserved rights, you really have to be very careful on the interpretation of the wording, like the one on farm ponds,
3 acre farm.
yeah,
if they're essential to the farming operation. And it's your job to decide what's essential.
right.
And you may not need it, even at any pond. You may be able to dig a well. I don't know. There's, like, this is all stuff that Darcy Winter went over with me a year ago on the phone.
Yeah, and that's the thing, most, you know, most inland wetlands agencies, you get, it's like when I was trying to work with the attorney for this property owner, I said, usually you come before you do the work, and you kind of give a little map, and you say, we're gonna do this, and we consider it as a right, and, you know, then the commission can comment. And as Curtis just pointed out, it's 1 acre is all they were allowed to disturb.
Well, so you want me to send this to her?
Actually,
Yeah.
Bobby
He
Gander
was
is gonna
gonna-
call you, and she's gonna send, he's gonna.
He said he
Okay.
could email it to her.
If that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's what my recommendation was, but I said
Okay.
to Bobby that everything goes through Curtis, because it's an expense now.
Yeah. Did you talk about the rare plants or anything?
Well, he brought it up in his letter,
Okay.
and he's saying, you know, who is this, it's monitoring and all that stuff.
He's
No,
he's stating that there's no documentation that any rare or endangered
Doesn't-
species ever exist. He said there's no maps on record,
I
there's
don't
no.
think you need all that stuff. I think applicants have to read the regulations and, make some determination.
It looks to me like we're just setting.
There is
up
an
a-
NDDB map.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Right, but
It's like,
our system is set up to slap hands after it's done rather than.
well,
prevent
that's
it
what
from
we
being
gotta
done.
change.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's gonna probably take a lot more administrative work, because I don't know if you wanna have to patrol everyone who mows a lawn or plants tomatoes within 75 feet of the lake, but,
Or
This
a
is-
stream or anything.
or
It's
streams.
Like,
I mean, I know as a forester, I've been through to many wetlands missions, and if we mark, in the old days, we'd mark timber. Like, if you mark timber in a nearby town here, you can't. I mean, you have major setbacks along any brook, and if you wanna infringe on that, you have to fill out an application, so we just keep a buffer and stay away from streams.
Well, a lot of, sometimes, like up in Norfolk, the Dooley Lake thing, that's not a town thing, that's
That's
a
a
lake
private
thing.
lake.
Yeah.
And so this is
That's a
a,
private lake, Mount Riga has their own,
and
but
then,
we have also regs on lakes.
and so I guess that's a question I have, maybe you can answer it. Is this a town lake or is this a private lake? Because as
The
far as I
water-
know,
the water is-
the town has the right to access it through the grove, but other than that, it's not a town lake, it's a private lake.
No, there's a state boat launch on that lake somewhere.
Just access, but it doesn't make the lake
Well,
a
it was my
state-owned
understanding
lake.
that Holly Manufacturing
No, it actually does
originally
make it a
owned the
state-owned
lake.
Can I write on one of these?
They,
I just don't know
they
the
originally
answer
had
to
the
that. It
power
seems to me
to
as though it's a
lower it
private
and
lake.
raise it. The Holly family had that lake, and it was part of the manufacturing world. At least that was what I was told by Lila Nash.
Well, we're getting closer, but we
If
don't
there's
She was a
have
major fund.
If there's a state boat launch, it's a state lake, right? Isn't that
I
right?
think they regulate it.
Yeah, I mean, it's their.
They regulate.
Waters
of
I think
Connecticut,
water is,
Owned by the state.
We have
It's owned by the
public
state,
comment.
yeah.
Ruth, check for.
There's a state statute dealing with the acreage on a lake, whether you can be privately held or publicly owned. And I think that's something like 25 acres. I remember this state statute back when I was first on the Conservation Commission back in 1975, 76, 77. And then, and also in dealing with